Hello, my name is David.
My name is Ruben.
My name is Emil.
And my name is Hugo.
And we have built Barker. Barker is a social media platform where users can post sound clips and interact with other users by following them and liking their posts. I will start by introducing the Barker frontend. For the frontend, we have used the primary tools Vite for building, TypeScript for programming, React.js for a web framework, SuperTokens for handling authentication of users, Sharka UI for a component library, and React Query for synchronizing our data with the backend. Among this, we have also used some other tools, Axios as an HTTP client, Wavesurfer for audio visualization, and React Media Recorder for recording audio from the mic.
The backend handles storing users and their posts. The sound for each post is stored on Google Cloud Storage to offload local file storage from the MongoDB database. SuperTokens is used as authentication and is self-hosted on this server. SuperTokens provides a list of endpoints for authenticating and registering new users. Our backend is based on Node.js, and our web framework we used is Express. We also used Mongoose, which is an ODM for MongoDB. And as I mentioned before, Google Cloud Storage for our audio files, and SuperTokens for user authentication. Other tools we used, Malter, a middleware for local file storage, NodeMon for hot reloading Node.js, and TSNode, TypeScript as execution target for Node.js.
Yes, so now we will go into a demo of the site, and then we will go back and show how each page is related to the code. So let's head to barker.com. This is the first page you're presented with. Here we can sign in as a user, but let's sign up with a new user. We can add our email here. Then we can add our password and sign up. After this has processed and been executed successfully, a user has been added to the SuperTokens endpoint. And this page is now presented to user, and we add a user to the MongoDB database. So here I can write anything I want. I will write Barker Demo Man. And we had plans to add a profile picture feature, but due to time constraints, we have just gone with the avatar, which displays the first two letters from the first two words in the string. So BD, and a random color is associated with that BD. So create profile then adds the user to the MongoDB database. And we are now at the home page.
Okay, so here we have the main feed, and it's quite empty right now. So first, we'll need to follow ourselves, which is the solution that we have right now. So we follow ourselves, also called trail in the dog world. And now we need to post our bark. So let's bark something. By pressing the bark button, we come to this bark window where we are able to record a audio clip. So let's record something.
Hi, my name is Barker Demo Man. I am doing a post.
Nice. Let's listen to that preview.
Hi,
Here we have a
my name is
preview
Barker
that is
Demo
saved
Man.
locally
I
on
am doing a
storage
post.
before we publish it to the cloud. So right now we're able to press the publish button, or we can exit this bark. But let's publish it. Okay, now we can see our bark.
And since Barker is about interacting with other users, I want to follow someone other than myself. So I know my friend is named Terrier on Barker, so let's search for him in the search field, and let's follow him, or trail him. And now to see my friend's posts, we can update the feed using the update feed button. And now we see that our friend's posts also show up on our feed.
I'm a dog.
Wow, those were some really good posts. I think I'm gonna like one of them by pressing the bone icon on the post card. And as you can see, the posts are also sorted chronologically by the timestamp in the top right of the postcard. I can also see who has posted in the top left of the postcard by their avatar and their username.
Yes, you can also use Barker on your mobile device. The functions are the same, but the layout have changed. So your profile column, as you saw before, is now gone and hidden behind a drawer, which you open by a button click. The same is for the search column. We can now we can use the same functions as before. We can follow a new user. And if you want to refresh our feed instead of a button click, you have to drag the feed down. And now it's refreshed.
My
we
name
see
is
a new
Boxhound.
post. You can, if we, before we log out, just let's create a final post or bark.
Last post before I log out. See ya.
As we see, we have the same functions as before. Yes, there is our new post, and if we log out, and we'll see that this screen is also working for a mobile device.
So we will now explain the code behind each screen. Starting with the landing page. If we head into the front-end code and we look in the root client here, we can see that the landing page is located at the landing page component, which is when you go to log in, which is where you are directed when you sign in from the beginning if you are not signed in, if you go to the page and you're not signed in. So let's head to that component. If we look here, we have used a lot of flex components and heading. These are all imported from the Chakra UI component library. Chakra UI component library provides us with a lot of components that do the base work for us. So here, for example, flex is just a div with display flex, and we specify which flex direction we want. Yeah, so this is the component for the landing page. And if I head down or head back to the app, we also have the create profile page, which I showed earlier in the demo. This is the page you go to when you have registered a new user and you're asked to provide us with a profile name. This is pretty much the same. We have some flex components, we have containers. We also have the function for when you click on the create profile button. This function pretty much does some checking if you have entered the correct name, which is just a non-empty string. Here we also handle the database call to register the user in our database. And this is done through a mutation. A mutation is a mutation of data in React query. It means that we are calling a post endpoint, which in turn then modifies some sort of data in the database. So here we create an initial user with name, supertokens ID, and three empty arrays, since the user doesn't have any following, any posts, or any liked posts. And after this have succeeded, we locate back to the slash endpoint. The slash endpoint is the home page, which Ruben and Hugo will explain now.
So to render these posts that you see on the feed, that is done from the feed component. And the feed component, the main bulk of it is that it gets its data from this custom hook here, use get post from following. And this uses the use infinite query hook from React query. And it has a page number, which is the current page that it is on, of all the posts that a user should see. And the second argument is the post limit, so the number of posts per page. And then that is deconstructed into the post data and some flags for if there are any more pages of posts to load, and a refetch function, for example, which is used in the refreshing feed button and the pull to refresh function. But its main use, but another use of this hook is also in the infinite query functionality. So this on-scroll function detects when the user scrolls in the feed, and if it reaches the bottom of the feed and there are still posts to load, then the query automatically fetches more posts and loads them into the feed. And all of the post data is rendered to the feed as a feed card using this function here, render feed cards. So for each page in the query result, it takes each post and renders them as a feed card. And the refresh button that was shown before is just this handle refresh function. And it uses the refetch function from the React hook. And here there are different things displayed depending on which state the feed is in. For example, here is just a wrapper for the pull to refresh. And depending on if it is mobile view or not, the refresh is either a button or it is just a pull function. And then if there exists data, then the render feed cards function will be run and the cards of the posts are rendered. And there is also a loading icon for fetching, for example, when the infinite query fetches new posts.
This is our search for users component. First we initialize states for search operations. First search word, which will be the string in our input field, then actual term, which will be the string that we send to our database. Here we initialize the state following, which will be a list of people we follow. Here we initialize the current user by calling the hook useGetUser. Then we initialize a state for the users that will be displayed if we've searched for something. Then we destructure the function data from our search users hook, which will return a list of search users. So we call this function calls our search endpoint in our backend with the word actual term. Then we destructure the function mutate with the hook useUpdate following, so we can change if a user follow a new user in. Then we set followed users to the users that we are following. Here we have a use effect which fires when we get new data and sets users to the data. And here we have another use effect which fires when the follower list is updated. Is the user following a user we search for? Then we have a check here. So we update the following list when a user is clicked here with this function on follow click. So we check if a user is followed with the current ID. So if the user is already followed, then we unfollow the user with that ID, otherwise follow the user. We update following data and state here, and then we mutate the current user in our database. So we update the user in our database by calling the mutate function. Here we have a throttled search function, and we do this and this runs only every 500 milliseconds when updated. So we have a throttle function from Lodash, which we do this to send only a few requests to the backend. So when we type a search word, we won't make an API call every key. So this function listens for a change value in output field and updates state. And here we have a use effect which call the throttle function when search word changes. And lastly, here we have the component that renders. Here's our input fields. So if search word is empty, we have a template which is displayed. Otherwise, if we have a non-empty string in our in search word, we will display all the users. So so we map every user in our followed users list. So every user will be displayed by the user card component. Which looks like this. A flex with an avatar and a text. And a button for following a user.
So now we have showed you the main parts of the application. We have showed you the landing page, the feed page, and the create post. I will now show you some of the components we haven't shown yet. So we have some minor components like the BARKER logo SVG. Here we have 3 components which just return an SVG with some path variables. These are used throughout the application, for example when displaying the BARKER icon on the landing page. We also didn't show the navbar. The navbar is the one up here, which is the one that becomes a navbar with 2 buttons if you have a mobile screen. So we use some Chakra UI components here as well. We use the drawer for when there are drawers involved in the mobile view. We also didn't show the test files. We have some test files here that you might have seen. These were used for testing the React Media Recorder. During the development phase, we had some problem uploading blob data to the database or the backend. So we used test files to create scenarios where we could just upload files without having implemented the whole create post page. We also didn't mention the themes. Styrbjörn provides us with some theming functionality, and Emil will talk some about the themes used throughout the application.
Yes. So we've used a custom theme that we've created. So here we can see we have specific colors. So the main color is of course red. We also have an egg white as well as a normal white, some black and purple. So these are the colors that we chose to create kind of a modern theme. We also have fonts that also follow this theme of kind of modern social media. And yeah, we also have some themes for the buttons to make sure that they all look consistent and follow our style.
Yeah, we also didn't talk a lot about the super tokens on the front end. We did show you this root component. You may have noticed that we have wrapped some of the components in email password auth. This component is provided to us by the super tokens email password recipe. And what this component does is that it protects all the components inside to only be rendered and shown to the user when the user has authenticated through super tokens. There is also the supertokens.init function, which will be called when on the initial load, since it is not placed inside a function component, it is just placed inside a file. And here we specify some info for super tokens to know what our backend is, or where our backend is, and what to do when the user, for example, presses on the login button or the register button. Since we have some custom logic on where to redirect. For example, we redirect to create profile if there is a new user. Otherwise, the default will be return /. So that's pretty much it for this demo. We will now, shortly before we end, just show you some of the backend code used throughout this demo.
So here in the main function of our backend, we begin with initializing our Express server. And here we connect to our MongoDB database. And here we initialize our super tokens service for user authentication. And here we enable a course. And this line here enables super token to send its headers to our backend. And when we deploy, we will add our deployed URL here to the allowed origins in the course options.
Then we configure our GCP bucket here, and then we add all our. After that, we configure all our endpoints. So for a post, user, and likes. And then we start the server on port 3001.
So thanks for listening and looking at our demo. We are looking forward to deploy this website. We did try to build a website for deployment, but we ended up with some issues regarding super tokens in integrations. We have posted issues on their GitHub, but are yet to get the response. So our plan is to perhaps move our application to Webpack in order to actually build it and then deploy it on either Firebase or directly to App Engine. So look out for that and register your Bark when that is up. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.